We're going to make a really stylish cafetière cover. What you'll need is just some fabric, some ribbon, and the Vlieseline 272 Thermolam. The Vlieseline 272 Thermolam is perfect to use for this because it has insulation properties. If you want some more information about the Thermolam, then please go to the video. So to make this very simple cafetière cover, you're going to need 2 pieces of fabric which measure 13 inches long and 7 inches deep. So it's great if you use a pattern fabric because it can actually be reversible. You also need a piece of Thermolam. A minimum size is 13 by 7, but as you can see here, mine's slightly larger because I'll cut it down. In addition, you want 6 pieces of ribbon. And the ribbon that I have is 9 inches long, and you can use whatever ribbon you like. You need to position your ribbon a 1/2 inch from the top and a 1/2 inch from the bottom, and then find the middle line, which is 3.5 inches, and pin them in place. Now, the main problem when you're sewing ribbons is that they escape, so as you're sewing around, they can end up in the seam. So just a little handy tip is I just clip mine together with a quilt clip, and it just keeps them in the centre, and at least I know where they are when I'm sewing. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to layer this up. I'm going to pop the fabric on top of this fabric, and I actually use the pins that the ribbons are in there, and just make sure I replace it. And you're going to do that for all 6 ribbons. Try to avoid leaving the pins in the centre because you may sew over them and it could damage your needle. Once the ribbons are in place, you can then pin the other sides. So pop a pin in there, and we'll pop a pin in this side. And what we need to remember is that on one of the long edges, we need to leave a gap for turning. So can you see those ribbons were trying to escape, but the weight of the quilt clip will keep them in. Now a little tip, if you are like me and you frequently forget to leave the gap for turning, just put a double pin in the places where you want to leave the gap, and that just tells me that as I approach those pins in whatever direction, that's where my gap for turning is going to be. So once we've got this, I'm now going to pop it onto the Thermolam. And I know it feels like I've done a lot of pinning, but what I don't want to do is that those ribbons to escape. So I'm just repositioning those ones. I'm going to add a couple of extra ones just for the sides to keep that in. And then we're going to take it to the sewing machine and we're going to sew around. So we're now ready to sew. I've started at the place where I'm going to leave my opening. So I'm just going to lower the presser foot and lower the needle, and my stitch length is going to be a regular 2.5. Even though I'm sewing with a Thermolam, you could use a walking foot, of course, as well. And you could, if you wanted to, increase your stitch length to 3. I tend not to when I'm piecing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stitch to the end, and I like to stitch off the end. And then cut my threads. Raise the presser foot, and then I'm going to stitch down this short side. Now this is the part where the ribbons are. Now that's going to get a lot of use, and so what's a useful tip is when you get to the place where your ribbons are, is just do a little reverse stitch. Because you think every time you tie the cafetière on, people are going to be tugging at those ribbons. Get up to there. It's a little bit fast. And then just do that reverse stitch. Get it up to the top. And you know exactly where those ribbons are because you popped your pins in. And then just do a reverse stitch and stitch off the short side. turn your work around, and this straight side I can stitch all the way down. So remember, on this short side, this is where the ribbons are. So pop it in. I'm approaching my first ribbon here. Do a reverse stitch. I'm approaching the second ribbon here. Do a reverse stitch. And then the last pin is just that one there. Do a reverse stitch and stitch off the edge. So we're approaching the final long side, and remember, this is where we have the gap, the turning, and we've put the double pin in. Just do a reverse stitch, and we've left this gap for turning. So the next thing to do is to remove all of the pins. And now, if you haven't cut the Thermolam exactly right, which is something I prefer to do, you can grab your pinking scissors and we'll trim all the way around. I've trimmed all of the excess fabric and Thermolam away, and now we're going to open up the fabrics and just pull it through to the right side. Your ribbons will be safe because they are in the quilt clips. Once you've pulled it through, we'll give it a press, and then we'll just top stitch around the edges. Okay, so we're now ready to top stitch the Cafetière cover. I've, out of choice, changed to my walking or dual feed foot. If you've got one, that's great. Failing that, just use your standard utility foot, but increase your stitch length to 3. This is an ideal way of closing the gap as well. So just lower the presser foot, get it into the position that you want it, so it's there. Lower the needle, and then you're just going to stitch around all 4 sides. This is where my gap is, where the quilt clips are. Now this time we're not going to stitch off the edge, we're going to stitch up to the corner and then turn, and just make sure that your ribbons are pointing out over. You don't want them stitched inside. So up, get to the corner, turn it round and stitch the other long edge. Finish stitching to where you started, take it out your machine, trim your threads, and you're all ready to wrap it around your cafetière. As you can see, Vlieseline has a wide range of products, each with different properties and benefits for your projects. You can view the whole range on the Vlieseline website, where you can download the brochure, which has detailed information on all of the products across our 4 categories.